Hello.
How are you?
You know when you're so tired that you get like new energy, like I guess your body's eating itself in a desperate attempt to keep you alive?
Yeah, that kind of like coming out the other end of tired thing.
Yeah, I'm really psyched right now.
I've had that before. Yeah, I find the same thing happens to me when I'm extremely hungry. I don't get tired anymore.
I assume that is also the body cannibalizing itself.
Presumably, I know that there comes a certain point in time where your body just goes, nope, that's it. I've had it. Time to eat the liver.
Okie dokie then. Where do you want to start on all this? All kinds of shit happened this week.
I don't know. I'm running a little bit behind. I didn't really get a chance to keep up with much of the news. I was made familiar of Hideo Kojima's aspirations for cosplay greatness.
Oh my god. Part of me doesn't even want to touch that. Everyone basically made up their minds. I guess we'll hit it quick.
I just I don't care what explanation he thinks he has. There's nothing. It's not like you're not dealing with people. It's not like you've got someone that you're using and it's kind of like, well, it's like, no, you've created this character. There's like no explanation that you can offer me for why you've created this character the way that you've created them. Like, there's no shame I'm gonna feel.
I don't. I stand by my statement that he's just trolling us like he always does.
Absolutely. I mean, that's probably the most likely explanation. But yeah. So what else do we got? We got
thing. I don't think you want to talk about like the Hotline Miami thing or the Penny Arcade thing, do you?
When you say the Hotline Miami thing, you mean the retooling of the rape scene?
Yeah.
I don't think that's, as far as I am concerned, it's a little bit ridiculous to go on a limb and start talking about it before it's actually out. Because it could be like, hey, good on them for trying to retool it, but then it could just be like, still a horrible, horrible thing. Or we could be like, oh no, the damage is done, but then it comes out and it's actually like pretty tasteful. Committing like one way or another doesn't really.
That would boil down to talking about the reaction more than anything, because it seems like there is no fucking middle ground on the internet. It's either people are like, everything is censorship, or people are just like, way too PC, and there's just no one who's willing to even slightly compromise on anything.
Yeah. All right, so
yeah, hopefully this is a short one for everyone's sake.
Probably not.
That was disconcerting.
Well, I see it as my duty, if nothing else, to keep you perpetually on edge.
Thanks.
You're welcome, I think. All right. Do you wanna
You a minute?
Me? Do I need a minute?
Because you just sounded like you died.
I need all the minutes. I don't know what's going on here. I'm just like fucking looking at a bunch of cheese pickles.
What's a cheese pickle?
I assume it's probably what the name suggests: cheese and pickles.
Oh, just the two separate? They're not some kind of hybrid?
Well, now I'm thinking about hollowing a pickle out and getting cheese inside it, and then deep frying those pickles.
Yeah, that sounds unhealthy.
But it also sounds fantastic. It mainly sounds fantastic.
Does it?
Oh, yeah.
I'll take your word for it. That sounds like a heart attack in every possible way.
Oh, yeah,
so.
No, probably. Probably, but I mean, you'd die with a smile on your face.
That doesn't seem like it'd be totally worth it.
You don't think so? Deep-fried cheese
Maybe
pickles?
It depends on the kind of cheese.
Have you had a deep-fried pickle before?
I want to say yes, but I can't actually remember that occurring.
Because they're really good.
Okay.
They're not like, you're gonna die, but it's okay good. But they're really good. Like, they're really, really very good. So, I'm just assuming that if somehow we managed to deep-fry cheese in that pickle, that would push it over the edge. That experience would become something special, is what that would happen to.
Okie dokie then.
Because everybody loves cheese. We made it even abundantly clear in an earlier episode of this podcast that we want to put it on the Holocaust.
I had like a really heated argument with someone the other day about whether or not cheese had lactose in it.
How can you have an argument?
That's what I said.
About whether or not cheese has lactose in it. That's like having an argument about light. As if, like, the sun gives off light. You can't argue that.
But his contention was that if you age cheese, it gets less it has less lactose over time, so eventually it would reach a point where it would be lactose free.
But would it then cease to be cheese?
What would it be then?
I'm not sure it would be cheese. Because I mean, I've had friends that have some pretty serious lactose intolerance in their diets, and as a result, if they want to have anything resembling cheese, they have to have this like lactose-free like Frankenstein substitute for cheese. Like imagine if you will, you go to sit down and watch an episode of Seinfeld, but instead of Jerry Seinfeld, excuse me.
Now that would be a show.
Instead of Jerry Seinfeld, you get the guy who plays the Hound in Game of Thrones, and dressed up as the Hound and playing the same character, but in Seinfeld.
I'm pretty sure that there would be no one left by the end of the first episode of that.
It's a horrific and chilling experience, but you're sort of like, well, if I can't actually watch Seinfeld, this is probably the next best thing.
Speaking of Game of Thrones, this is weird that we've been on this topic for 3 weeks.
Well, you've been watching it. Are you done watching it?
No, not quite. But I was talking to Jonathan Holmes from Destructoid earlier.
Yeah.
And he was saying he doesn't like it because it's just a show about jerks being jerks.
Uh-huh.
And then he said they should rename it Frown Town. And I was just thinking that I would watch the shit out of a show called Frown Town.
I probably would too, actually, especially if it was an HBO show. If HBO came to the table with a show called Frown Town, I'm pretty sure that whatever they came up with would be worth watching.
We gotta pitch that.
Absolutely, we do.
I still say, I don't know if I've ever told you this. I was talking about this with somebody, but we should. Channel Awesome needs like a Mad Men style, like real ass show about like working at BT. Just like, I don't know how you would visualize that happening through Skype, but just all sitting around and just be like, God damn it, Sean, I needed that review on my desk an hour ago. I'm just like sitting in my office, just slowly drinking myself to death.
I think that's pretty much what it would be. Is it at the times that I'm not speaking to you, the only times I would be on screen, I'd be sitting at my desk drinking. There'd just be these 10-second long interstitials throughout an episode of me, and like progressively as the episode goes down, you just see the bottle get more and more empty.
It's a shame that Channel Awesome doesn't know we exist, because I have a lot of good ideas. I still say that we need like a daily show, like news feature, like just making fun of like other sites the way that they do.
Yeah,
that would be good stuff.
Yeah,
and then we need like an actual like not like drama, but I think it'd be fun to take down the idea of games journalism.
Yeah.
Just that whole thing.
It's nowhere near as interesting or glamorous as it's kind of sad. It makes me sad sometimes.
Oh my gosh. And it's such like serious business. Like I was reading an email I got earlier and it was like all caps, like red letters. It was like, do not alter any of these screenshots. And I was like, what are you gonna do if I do? Like
I'd be kind of curious as to the one person who would like look at that screenshot and be like, you know what, these are almost good enough. I better alter them.
Well, I guess it's so you don't misrepresent their game, but it's like, if I'm going to alter them, I'm going to do something really stupid and silly, like, cut the heads out and put them on other bodies entirely. Like, I don't think anyone's going to confuse it for your actual game.
Well, that was like, it was one of the things that kind of dawned on me today, that for like the whole past week, all I've really been doing in my spare time is like playing Amnesia: A Machine for Pigs. and, like general life stuff, right? And the embargo lifted today, and I was like, finally, I can fucking talk to people about Amnesia Machine for Pigs. And I'm at work, and I'm like, nobody here would have any idea what I was talking about. But it's like, when you're on the site and when you're talking to people and things like that, it's really like, okay, all right, the embargo is going to be up then like Monday morning at 6:00. You have Pacific Standard Time, so you better make sure that you're on right there, and we can't like blow anything beforehand. So it just like, and then the embargo lifts, and you're like, yes, everything went smoothly. But in real life, it's just like, yep, been reviewing a game.
That's the thing, because I know lots of people, I mean, they play games. They might even, identify as gamers, but there's a total disconnect between, like, the online sphere and offline. Like, things that are, news online are old news an hour later.
Yeah.
But in real life, like, months could go by, and I'd be like, oh, did you hear about the thing? And they're like, no, I did not.
Yeah. Meanwhile, your favorite website has had, like, 4 rewrites in the same goddamn article in one day.
Yeah, it's just coming in so fast and furious. It's just like, oh my god, this is what Walter Cronkite must have felt like during Nom.
Yeah. So rather than Mad Men, it'd be like The Newsroom.
I haven't seen that. I heard it's like pretty hard to watch.
Yeah, it can be. It cuts to the quick of things.
So, yeah, I think it would be fun to have like an overly dramatic kind of show about games journalism. That's actually something, I don't know if you saw the documentary Polygon made about itself, but like without the pretension of that. I think it would actually, like, you wouldn't even need to dress it up. I think it would just be funny.
Probably.
Presented like honestly, like just seeing people like really upset over trailers and shit like that.
Yeah.
Announcements, press conferences. The size of the Vita's memory card is fucking insufficient.
I don't even know what games I'm going to be playing on it, and already I'm angry.
Dude, like throwing shit in your fucking room, just screaming at a computer screen.
Yeah.
No one else cares.
I think that's a pretty good motto to adopt about life in general.
No one cares.
Nobody cares. Just put your head down and keep walking. Just nobody gives a shit. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of the Attention Deficit Disorder Style Guide. Today on the Attention Deficit Disorder Style Guide, myself, your host Johnny Maloney, and my co-host Austin Yorsky are going to be talking about new styles that we're going to expect this autumn. Because as you know, autumn is just around the corner, and that means it's going to be very important to stock up on very colorful cereals. Particularly if you have children developing in your house, because it can be difficult to get your 3 to 5 servings of grain in a day, just like protein, which is superb for the brain. I mean, the body needs about 9 grams of protein, or else it starts to consume its own organs, and that can be kind of strange or difficult to deal with, because of course many of the body's internal organs are really difficult to replicate and encourage growth of once you actually reach an adult level. Although scientists have figured out a way actually to strip all the DNA out of donor organs, so that you're actually left with this like lattice of protein that has all the cells gone, but basically the architecture of the organ stays there. And it's weird because they found the chemical that does this in shampoo. So when selecting a shampoo, it can be really important to try things that aren't too harsh on your skin, particularly if you have sensitive skin like myself.
Am I supposed to stop you, or was this like going somewhere? Like, I understand the attention deficit joke. I just wasn't sure if you were waiting for me to jump in.
I don't know.
Because you don't prep me beforehand. You just spring these on me. So sometimes I feel like I'm missing my cue.
No, you chime in when you feel like you've got something to contribute to the conversation.
Oh, then you're going to be talking to yourself for an hour.
I'm particularly fond of citrusy and minty smells. Those are some of my favorite flavors as well. Many cocktails that I make, particularly in the summer months, are based around mint and citrus. My favorite mint cocktail, well, actually, no, you can make it with mint, but it's actually better with basil, which is closely related to mint. It's called a gimlet. It's lime-based and basil-based.
Isn't that the guy from Lord of the Rings?
That's Gimli. Gimli, who is a dwarf. And dwarfism I find kind of interesting, particularly because of all the fey races that we find in fantasy stories. They're sort of the one. Dwarfism is a thing that happens in real life. You know, there's actually people that are dwarves, which I find kind of interesting because I've always often wondered if real life dwarves get upset about their fantastic. Like what would possess a guy who's writing a fantasy book to be like, yeah, so we're going to have this like race of slender kind of fey people who live forever. They're called the elves, and then we're going to have these ugly, nasty orcs and trolls, and I need one more. And then like seeing a really short guy walking across the street and be like, oh, that's it, dwarves, but they need more beards. I can't for the life of me understand why you would want to add more beards to anything, because they're already all over folk music, and that's...
Okay,
too much for me.
Oh, no, you're done. All right. Do you want to talk about video games now?
I was going somewhere.
No, you weren't.
Pajamas. Yeah. Autumn pajamas. They're pretty cool. You should check them out. Some of them are comfortable. Sorry,
John,
I'd lose track sometimes.
I'm going to destroy you, John.
Eventually. I get the feeling that we're working up to it. This is probably the origin part of the story where, like, Magneto and Professor X are really good friends with one another. But then, like, 20 years on, they kill each other in a psychic magnet battle.
I feel like we're, like, C-list villains. This is, like, Grass Man and Lawnmower Man or something.
If it's Lawnmower Man, can we have the really crappy, like...
Not the Stephen King story.
No, the movie with all the really bad 3D special effects. Or even better than that, the Super Nintendo video game.
Wasn't that not even close to the movie? I've read the Stephen King story it's based on, and I've seen bits of the movie and the game.
Yeah.
None of them have anything to do with each other, really.
No, absolutely, which is why I'm going to the Super Nintendo, because it is the farthest thing from the Lawnmower Man, and if we were to base our story off of that, we'd be like 4 times removed from the source material. And it doesn't matter how bad the story would be, everybody would be like, it's 4 times removed from the source material, what did you expect? There's also the argument that we couldn't possibly do anything worse than the Super Nintendo Lawnmower Man game.
Why did people think that was like a franchise? Like, who saw that and was like, yes, I will make this the next big thing?
I think, like, you're talking who would have adapted it to a video game, or like who made the second movie, because I think they were different people. Both confused people.
Yeah, I guess they're all
people.
they're all suffering from the same affliction, apparently.
Yeah.
Stupidity.
It's a thing.
It's a sexually transmitted disease, I believe.
A hereditary condition as well.
I guess we can talk about. Do you want to start like recently because the Sony press conference happened this morning, or do you want to take it back?
No, we can start with Sony. We'll start with Sony because it's a slightly more abstract topic, I believe. What my close friend and compatriot Mr. Yorsky is referring to is that on the morning of this, the 9th of September, in the year 2013, CE. And that would be AM, which stands for anti-meridium.
No, Anno Domini.
No, that's AD.
Oh, I thought you said AD.
No, I said AM. I was like...
I'm not, John, I'm going to be real with you. I ain't even listening to what you're talking about right now.
And I know that AD is Anno Domini, but that's why people use... That's why I said CE, because that's a slightly more secular way, because it's current era.
Johnny?
Yes.
Video games.
No, I'm getting there. Just, I'm taking the scenic route.
You're setting the stage?
I'm setting the stage. There's a little bit of drama to this here, Like, Austin, I'm not allowed to have pyrotechnics or, flashy lights or disco balls or dancing ferrets.
I'm gonna have to put the thing in the caption where it's like skip to 8 minutes in to get to the video game talk. Did you see that Holly or whoever did it replaced my KKK joke in the thing on Tigwatig?
Yeah, I did. Too hot for Tigwatig once again. Too controversial.
That was like I wasn't even on the side of the KKK there. I was like just bringing them up by name is. I don't know. What's the running tally on times we've been too risque?
I think like 7.
Nice.
Because we've been cock blocked on a couple of titles. There have some titles. There have been titles that have gone up that have mysteriously changed after the fact. There's been some audio editing that's been required. Yeah, I think we're climbing up to 10. We're getting close to 10 times.
And we're at episode 71, so that's a pretty good percentage.
Yeah. It's
our batting average.
It's more percentage than you get in people who perish from throat cancer.
This just got dark.
All right, let's lighten it up a bit. It's a higher percentage than homosexuality in the North American population.
I have no idea what the percentages of that is.
I was under the impression that North America was 10%, between 10 and 15%, and that's not like there's 10 and 15% of people who are gay. That's like 10 to 15% of people are gay, because there are like people who are like 100% gay, and then there are people that are like 60% gay. It's very complicated. The science is all over the map on this one. So
is that how it works?
Trust me, I always tell the truth.
Okie dokie. Did you want to finish that Sony intro, or do you want me to take this one?
Hey, you were the one that interrupted me. I was ready to go. I'm trying to explain it. Our patient listeners, but no, you just have to step in and direct the conversation. This morning, Sony had a pre-Tokyo Game Show press conference where they got out on stage and were harangued by the thronging love and adorations of millions of people who can't wait to see their next console hit the market. And they had a couple of things to announce. Where do you want to start, Austin? Should we start with the Vita?
I'm going to say probably, because although I guess it was ostensibly a PlayStation 4-centric event, the Vita really came away with more headlines.
So, the headlines involving the Vita. First of all, there's going to be there's a second version of the Vita that's going to be releasing. I'm not sure if they yet have a release date for North America on it, but the new model of the Vita is coming to Japan in October, and I would go ahead and say that it streamlines the design. It's 20% thinner. It's going to be 15% lighter. It's swapping out the screen, the OLED screen, so it's going to be an LCD screen now.
Losing the OLED display is kind of, I'm not sure if that's really a step in the right direction. That was like the one thing that I love about the Vita.
Well, it seems counterintuitive to me, because Sony's, when they talk about their handheld consoles, the thing that they always bang the drum about is basically making it so that you can have a at-home experience, like a big cinematic gaming experience just on the go. And it seems to me that ditching an LED screen for an LCD screen, it isn't, it doesn't speak to that big cinematic blockbuster experience.
Yeah,
that says budget to me.
I guess it was just necessary to get the price down, because basically the takeaway from this entire thing, as far as the Vita is concerned, is like, all right, we got all the money from the people who are willing to pay a high price point. Now let's just try to get the people who were on the fence or lower, I guess, because everything is moving down in price as far as that's concerned.
There's a better way to do that, though, I feel. Make games.
I mean, some people just have a budget. They just can't, even no matter how much they want it, I guess. Yeah, I feel like that they wouldn't necessarily have to make a budget version of the Vita if they had more games to stand by. Like if they could actually do a job of properly selling why you want to buy a PlayStation Vita in the first place,
as opposed to just being like, we know you don't want to buy a PlayStation Vita. Would you like to buy one of these instead?
This is the thing Sony always does with its hardware. I mean, Nintendo does it too, is releasing the slimmer versions of all their systems. I don't think anyone was surprised by this announcement, but I don't know if it speaks to a lack of confidence in selling it. I mean, it was a Japan-centric event, and Japan is actually pretty awash in Vita games right now. Most of them are Monster Hunter clones, but it doesn't seem to bother anyone over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think there was a couple more. There's a new version of Soul Sacrifice. I think the new Phantasy Star is a Monster Hunter style game. I'm trying to think what else was announced there. The Danganronpa, I probably pronounced that terribly. That's a thing. A couple other things, but yeah, there wasn't a lot of games that look like they appealed to Westerners. But as far as games that appeal to the Japanese audience, I don't think they're hurting too bad right now, at least. Mm-hmm. They've picked up, that's for sure.
Now, the more interesting news for the Vita for me, I feel, was the introduction of the PlayStation Vita TV.
Which came out of nowhere. I don't think a single analyst ever called anything like this.
Yeah, this one struck me as really being out of left field. Well, the PlayStation Vita TV is essentially it's a device that plugs into your Vita. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong about this here, Austin, but it's a device that plugs into your Vita that will allow you to stream games onto your TV.
Let me just double check here. I don't know if a Vita is required because I feel like that would defeat the purpose. Let me check real quick.
Oh yeah, my mistake. It appears that it's actually it's on its own.
Yeah, it's a micro console, like the Ouya was what people were saying basically.
Yeah. So that
it uses a PS3 controller.
Yeah, my mistake.
It can stream games directly from the Vita. Yeah, and it accepts like Vita memory cards and stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. I don't think anybody saw this coming. I mean, this is like I'm not sure what kind of discussion you would have to have in the boardroom to come up with this idea. It kind of weirds me out.
I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who don't play portable systems on the go. They just sit on their couch and play 3DS or whatever. So it isn't actually that unthinkable to me to make a home version of a portable console, especially at the low price point, basically the equivalent of $100. I don't know if this is confirmed for North America yet, although I assume it will be if it's going to be that cheap. Yeah, why not? Right? What do you have to lose?
A bunch of money.
I don't have obviously any idea how much this took to R&D, but if you can afford to sell for $100, it can't be.
Yeah, probably not that much money, to tell you the truth, because you're basically dealing with technology that already exists. You're running off a handheld that you've already paid to make, and then you're just throwing in basically,
You just HDMI out the Vita into the TV.
Yeah, more or less. And then chuck in like a wireless PlayStation 3 controller. Ta-da! Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, you're not going to lose a lot of money on that. I guess it depends on how many you decide to make, but
yeah,
that's there's nothing wrong with that idea. It strikes me as kind of strange because I'm weird like that. Well, the idea of sitting on my couch and playing my Game Boy Advance kind of like freaks me out a little bit.
On the plus side, you have like Persona 4 Golden on the couch, which is pretty sweet. But on the downside, it's not going to be compatible with any games that make use of the touch capacity in any meaningful manner. I think Gravity Rush and Uncharted Golden Abyss are the two big ones that aren't going to work at all with it. So that's kind of sucky.
Yeah, that decision does kind of betray a part in their thinking, I suppose, because while at the same time it does sort of allow more variety for experience, like more viability in terms of people that aren't looking for that like little screen experience. They want something big, they want something cinematic, but it's really going to divide developers now. Assuming that the Vita TV sells well, when a company now goes to develop for the Vita, they're going to have to choose between developing for the Vita specifically and for the Vita TV.
Well, honestly, it kind of just incentivizes not using those features, because if you don't, then you get both. You can be on the Vita and the Vita TV.
I realize that, but, like, what I'm suggesting then is that if somebody has a really interesting or creative idea to use the touch screen for, they're going to have to basically lay it off to the side. And therefore, it feels to me like the Vita essentially will not be maximized as a playing experience.
True, but I think that kind of speaks to the fact that we've kind of given up on it. I don't think it really ever was used to much effect, and I don't think Sony has any more faith in it being the new Wii. I think that's kind of the benchmark everyone wants. Everyone wants to be the new Wii because that was so successful.
If that is indeed the case, if they're essentially deciding to deep six the touchscreen, I'd really love it to have that meeting where, Sony sits in on developers and they're like, yeah, we're really excited about making games for the Vita. And Sony's like, you can do what you want, but let's give you some advice here. Don't use the touchscreen. Don't do it. Nobody likes it. It was a stupid idea.
I mean, all of the hardware coming up has one of those things in it now. The Kinect has the Xbox One has the Kinect. The PlayStation 4 is going to have like pads on the DualShock. The Wii U has the gamepad. Like, everyone's kind of stuck with a gimmick now.
And then the Oculus Rift has
itself
their porno extensions.
But, I mean, do you think... we touched on this last week with the 2DS, right? When they cut out the 3D. That was the big gimmick, and now it's gone.
Yep.
Or, it will be in that line of products anyway. Do we see Wii U without a gamepad? Do we see the Xbox One without a Kinect? Like, obviously, so far, no. Like, Microsoft has out and out said no Xbox One without Kinect, but... things change.
If they leave the Kinect in permanently, like absolutely permanently, I see a real difficulty in the future for Microsoft dropping the price on their system. Like,
it's gonna drop slower.
Yeah, like and that's gonna push a lot of competition, I think, into the arms of their competitors. Not that I feel like anybody has a reason to buy an Xbox One right now, because really, if you want to play Titanfall, get a PC.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to go down that path again. We've just mercilessly flogged that poor console.
I recognize that, but I'm basically just trying to say is that they are not doing themselves any favors by basically painting themselves into a price point corner like that.
Yeah, I don't think anyone right now is doing themselves any favors with a lot of their decisions. I think most consumers ignore the majority of these gimmicks and like add-ons and stuff. I think the Wii was a kind of a fluke because it was so novel and accessible. You just wagged it and it was like bowling. I don't think everyone like really in their heart of hearts wanted more swiping and poking.
Yeah, there's probably a whole lot of Wiis sitting dusty in like grandma's closets the world around, Yeah. Just languishing.
Which is fine for Nintendo. They got your money.
Crying out in silent pain.
But the Vita TV is a cool idea in some respects. Like, if I didn't already have a Vita, and I was like, oh man, I really want to play Persona 4 Golden, but I don't want to drop $200 and memory card on the whole system. Like, $100 to play it on my TV is pretty sweet. But on the other hand, you don't get to play Gravity Rush, which is kind of the point of owning a Vita. That and Soul Sacrifice and indie games, but I don't know. You couldn't win them all to begin with. That was just an unwinnable situation as far as integrating touch into the living room goes. You're not gonna have someone sit in front of their TV and just poke the screen.
Well, you might if they were like heavy autistic or something.
Oh my God, Johnny, you can't say that on the podcast.
I'm just saying the market's not that deep.
Johnny. You put me in so many awkward positions because, like, if I try to play it off as a joke, like, I'm complicit in your joke.
Austin,
but if
I'm not ragging on autistic people.
I know, but if I come down too hard on you, then I'm being a killjoy. So I kind of just have to go, ha ha, oh, you.
I'm simply saying I'm agreeing that, like you, that it's probably not very likely that you'd have a large audience of people who would want to poke their TVs, even though there are people out there who probably do poke their TVs for whatever reason.
Okie dokie then, Johnny. Do you want to go on to the next story?
Yeah, and this is an interesting one for me, actually. This is probably, I don't want to say the highlight, because that makes it sound like good news. But it is certainly, I think, the most interesting news to come out of the Sony press conference this morning, and that is that the PlayStation 4 will not be released in Japan until February. I'm going to say that last word again a little slower. February. I didn't really say February the first time, but February. February.
Defibrillator. Yeah.
Fabulous.
So 2 months later, the country that is manufacturing these devices will get them.
Now, I think I speak for everybody when I say, what in the fuck?
You don't speak for me. This actually makes way more sense than it initially appears. At first, you're like, why would Japan ignore itself when releasing new hardware? There are a couple of reasons. The first big one, obviously, is that there's nothing in the launch lineup that appeals to Japan. They don't give a shit about Killzone. They don't give a shit about, Assassin's Creed or Watch Dogs. They don't give a shit about probably even Infamous, which comes a little bit after. You know what they want? They want Dynasty Warriors. They want Yakuza. They want Gundam. They want things that are not coming until February. So that's just number one. Number two, Japan's home console market is pretty irrelevant at this point. Like, I saw figures that the 3DS sold more in a year than the PS3 did in its entire existence. Like,
really?
Something like that. I'm maybe exaggerating, but missing out on 2 months of PS4 sales is not that big of a deal. Japan is very small, relatively speaking, and they buy portables. They buy 3DSs and they buy Vitas. They don't really care about the next-gen hardware that much.
Huh.
And they're even their own developers. I mean, barring some of the higher-end Square stuff, their developers aren't even that interested in making anything for next-gen consoles. I mean, have you seen the stuff that sells in Japan, like Monster Hunter? That's not taxing the CPU.
Do you mean GPU?
Johnny.
What?
I'm very sleepy. Don't argue with me.
Okay. Sorry.
Monster Hunter.
No, your explanations I find satisfactory. Your information is acceptable. I will now add it to my own.
Well, were you saying that you said you speak for everyone when you say what the fuck? Explain your initial reaction. Were you just baffled?
I am. I was very baffled by it. It just seemed like something that, I never would have pegged. Europe? Yeah. The stuff never comes out in Europe. They still don't have toast.
I think they're called Crumpets. Is that what that is?
You have to import toast in some areas of Europe. That's how bad they're the localizations and fucking, what do they call it? Region locking. There we go. Toast is region locked in portions of Europe. You don't even want to know about the stuff you put on toast. Marmalade, you get that in England, but they don't have any toast to put it on.
What do they do with it?
I assume they eat it by the spoonful or warm it up in the microwave and drink it out of mugs. Maybe they put it on English muffins. Which incidentally,
they're just called muffins.
Are not actually known as muffins, strangely enough.
What are they called there?
It's not a question that anybody has ever asked a Brit and lived to hear the response. So
is that Crumpets? I'm just gonna ask if everything is Crumpets.
No, they're not Crumpets. Incidentally, when Crumpets first arrived in Australia, NC-17, they were not allowed to be published. The government came down hard on Crumpets in Australia.
I think you're thinking of Strumpets.
No, Crumpets, very specifically Crumpets.
Nothing else rhymes with strumpets and crumpets but those two. Damn it.
Trumpets?
Oh, yeah, fuck. I'm off my game today.
You are off your game today, Austin. What's going on?
Okay. I completely lost our train of thought.
I was trying to say that the PS4, delaying for Europe, I'm like, yeah, that's just what happens. I mean, it shouldn't. I think it's stupid, but I understand that it's going to happen. But when someone's like, yeah, by the way, Japan, fuck it, you're going to have to wait a bunch more months. That weirded me out. I did not see that one coming. I was taken aback by it. I was a little bit late, aghast. I was surprised. It flummoxed me.
You're going to run out of synonyms eventually.
There was a moment of incredulity. I was afflicted by a perplexion.
Johnny?
Yes.
Here's the thing, also, that I don't know why people don't say this more often, but no one should ever get a console at launch.
It's true. I'm with you all the way. It's a bad idea. Every time I've bought a console at launch in the past, it's been a heartbreaking and disappointing experience. And if you don't believe me, I invite you to come back with me to the year 1996 and meet my friend, the Sega CD.
Oh, man. Launches when they're most expensive, they have the least and worst games. And they're going to release a updated, streamlined version in like a year and a half anyway. There's no winning. Like, every single part of that is a negative.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm sorry. I totally bawled on the Sega CD release date. It was actually 1992. I just realized that I'm like, in 1996 I was 16, and I'm like, wait a minute. When I was 16, there were other video game consoles. 1992. That's better. That's when I was younger. And Sewer Shark and Night Trap came out. But you're absolutely right. Buying a console at launch is a grievous mistake that I think we should all stay away from making.
Also, I mean, it's not like you've played all the worthwhile games on the last generation consoles. It's like physically impossible. You know how many games I play every week, Johnny. And I still haven't caught up.
I know. The dents are that we're making in our catalogs now. I mean, the industry has never been more enriched or as varied as it currently is. Not only by back catalog, but by like the sheer amount of titles that are coming out on like a weekly basis these days too. It has become officially impossible to keep up with it.
Yeah, mathematically.
I would maybe feel a little bit different if I felt that the actual technological leap between this console generation and the next console generation was more notable. Because when we go back in time and look at things like the leap between the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Super Nintendo, like there were some like major leaps and bounds there. Same when you started moving to like CD-based storage instead of cartridges. Like the leaps were so large back in the day, it seems. But after we got to the PlayStation and then like the original Xbox and the PlayStation 2, it seems like those leaps to the future are getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
There are certainly diminishing returns. I mean, I hear that a lot. I think a lot of the improvements are subtle, or just kind of things you don't even notice.
Or not even improvements at all.
Well, I was gonna say, I think we have to realize that the big differences aren't going to be in the launch lineup. That's the stuff where if you look at the end of the PS4, Xbox One generation compared to now, you would be really noticeable. But no, the launch library versus titles that are pushing the current hardware to their limits, you're not going to see quite as much difference as you probably would like.
Yeah,
but I mean, give it some time.
The optimization is going to take a little while. But no, you're absolutely right. It's the worst time to buy a system. I'm merely trying to explain that I was laid out by the announcement that Japan would be receiving the PS4 2 months late. Didn't see it coming.
Also, I think we talked about this before about how I don't think the next generation of next generation of consoles should be about graphics as much as it should be like artificial intelligence, like improvements in AI and stuff.
Yep.
Another thing that occurred to me, well, I don't remember what game I was playing. I was playing a game recently, and I was thinking, what I really want to see on the next console generation is like an end to load times. Just no more of that.
That's not going to happen.
I know, because physical media is just not capable of that. But that would be my ideal.
No. Let me finish the sentence here, okay? That's not going to happen until two things happen. And those two things are, you get full installation of games as mandatory on systems, and solid state drives.
Yeah.
That's going to be it. Those are the two steps that you pretty much need to take for load times to stop. Because, I mean, I have a solid state drive. I have, like, the solid state drive in my machine. And, of course, I still get load times, but it's like you blink and they're done. Like, that's it. It's over. So until you actually start, like, having to mandatorily install all the games that you're going to be playing on a console onto the hard drive, and when those hard drives become solid state, that's when you're going to start seeing the loss of loading times. But until those things get done, we're still going to see loading screens when they go to hard drives, because that's just the way it is. But it's going to be either that, or we're going to have to start doing shit like streaming games. You know, like OnLive or something, but even then, that gives way to a whole collection of new problems.
Yeah, at a certain point, it's not progress. We're kind of moving sideways.
Yeah, it's more lateral improvement. It's like, you know, trying to climb over the 10-foot wall just 8 feet to the left.
And of course, once you have, you know, publisher, server-side things to worry about, that's a whole nother goddamn can of worms.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I could handle that emotionally or spiritually.
That's a mass grave I'm really not interested in looking upon.
Yeah, like in a perfect world maybe, but not with EA and Activision at the helm.
Yeah, Blizzard.
That's straight up Frown Town.
Yeah, that's the season pilot for Frown Town right there. That's what that is.
Oh my lord. All right. Did you want to hit one more story before we talk about what we played?
Yeah, let's talk about the publisher who I think has the cutest abridged name in the entire industry, Squeenix.
Oh my gosh.
You want to talk about Squeenix?
I've been talking about Square Enix for like 3 years straight. I feel like I've said everything there is to say about these jerks.
I think it's kind of hilarious that they like. It seems as though at this point in time they're just throwing whatever they can lay their hands on and just seeing what sticks.
Well, their last CEO had to step down after he screwed the pooch, and now their new guy's in here. He's like, now I will screw the pooch in an entirely new way.
Yeah, they are just like, you know, I'm not even sure if there's an industry term for what they're doing. It's weird.
Jeez.
But what we are referring to is that Square Enix made an announcement today that they are firmly adhering to their business model of their balls to the wall, super spectacle, cinematic tour de force, incredible, super triple A plus S rating, amazing game creation system, even though in full knowledge that is basically what has completely wrecked their
shit.
Like everything about them. You know, like I get the feeling that as the day goes on at Squeenix offices, the building just like every time they spend more money on something, the building just starts to fall apart.
It's just like it's getting sucked into the earth,
yeah,
like brick by brick.
Yeah. So they're standing by that model of business, because who wouldn't? When you lose like tons and tons and tons of money and your stock goes in the shitter, why wouldn't you keep doing what you've been doing all this time? But they're coming at these incredible new heavy titles with a new business model. I say that in the loosest term possible, because that would suggest that they actually had a business model of which to speak. Essentially, they say that they want to bring you these experiences that they've brought you before, but they want to sell you other things too. What other things? Nobody has any idea.
Yeah. So the best guesses out there are they're going to start selling like prologue titles. They did that for Final Fantasy Dissidia Duodecimals or whatever. I get Dewey Decimals.
Duodenoms?
Yeah, there was a prologue for that. They're also thinking about, maybe merchandising. I know it's a big thing in Japan is once you get a series, they with any name recognition, you start cranking out fucking action figures and body pillows and shit like every chance you get. So I feel we're going to see probably a surge in that. They're going to start trying to monetize things before they're released. That's the big takeaway, is that they're going to make their exorbitant budgets back by selling you shit that isn't the game you want.
That you kickstarted.
Perhaps. We talked about Square Enix before, perhaps using Kickstarter. I bet they've been continuing their research into that area. I would not be surprised to see one for maybe a smaller title to test the waters. I won't be shocked when it happens.
No, I don't think I will either. But I mean, desperation is a strong word to use. But there's something about this business model that smacks of it. It's in the air. There's a thick odor of desperation surrounding this news, particularly in the lack of details.
We're doing something, investors. Don't freak out yet.
Yeah, it almost sounds as though that the news is exclusively for people who are just like waiting to see the ship sink. Excuse me. And they're like, no, don't worry, we've this under control. We are fine. Everything is fine here. Business as usual. Square Enix for the win.
Well, I mean, what's the alternative? Do you admit you fucked up and back off and start making reasonably price stuff?
I think what you do is shut your goddamn mouth, first of all, and then, yeah, try some new things out, but maybe don't tell people that you're trying some new things out before you even know what new things you're going to be trying out.
Well, it seems like that all they make is way too expensive shiny stuff and way too cheap and shoddy iOS stuff. I feel like some middle ground wouldn't hurt.
We talked about this the other week as well. That middle ground of gaming. Modest budgets, innovative titles, like...
Oh my... But both of the games I played this week, Johnny, are in this category, and I'm so excited to talk about them.
And does either of them come from Square Enix?
Nope.
Does either of them come from a company that you would consider to be a big publisher?
Yeah.
What companies?
Ubisoft and Sony.
All right. Okay.
Ubisoft, you got to give them credit. Blood Dragon, Gunslinger, yep. They know which way the wind's blowing.
Yep,
I would say as much shit as we give them, they're not hiding their head in the sand on this issue.
No, absolutely not. And Sony as well, considering that all the policies that they have implemented for the PS4 that are like developer friendly, as well as all the independent game like maelstrom of news that the PS Vita is currently enjoying. Mm-hmm. Like both of these companies, I guess I'm not surprised to hear that from them.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually something I hadn't thought about. Ubisoft is kind of like the mirror Square Enix. Ubisoft is like every year sequel, every year reuse the assets, profit. And Square Enix is like 8 years between every Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy, everything, brand new engines, brand new assets. And it's like, which company is bleeding cash and which one is like record profits right now?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to say that everyone should copy Ubisoft because they're despicable in their own special ways, but as far as being a viable financial entity, I'm just saying, look at the numbers.
Yeah, true. People could probably learn a thing or two from Yves Guillemot.
Oh, too bad no one can find a goddamn compromise, as if there is. It's not that complicated, guys. Is it? Am I speaking crazy talk to think that there's a way?
I don't see it. It seems to me that there is a way, there is a middle path. Come on, game developers, pick up your copy of the Tao Te Ching.
I got that reference. That was a religion thing.
A philosophy more than anything else. It's difficult to call Taoism as a religion because at no point in time are they like, and this happens after you die.
I actually got into an argument about this with someone recently. I was talking about whether or not Taoism and Shinto religions, or I was trying to say that they were like, they're belief systems based on, ideas and stuff, but they're not, it's hard to say because then you get into what is religion? That's off the topic. Where are we going?
Are you surprised that it's off the topic? You just have to let these things happen, Austin. You keep fighting it, and it just keeps coming back and biting you in the ass. I don't know anything about Shintoism, not enough about it to speak authoritatively, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't think Taoism is a religion. It's more a behavioral set of behavioral axioms, and like recognition of the way things work. It's more applicable than it is theoretical or theological.
I think it has theological elements, but I was of the opinion that it is more of it's kind of a loose belief structure, because you have ancestor veneration and stuff that is religious-ish.
Yeah.
But there's no there's no guy in that big hat driving in the Pope-mobile.
Yeah, and he's not like, you shouldn't eat eels, and then be like, why not, Taoist Pope?
Oh my gosh. Do you think there is a publisher that is anywhere in the kind of vicinity we're talking about of a compromise between Square Enix's excesses and Ubisoft's kind of penny pinching?
There's bound to be. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was if it was a Japanese company. Like if I had to pull it down, because in the past 5 years it seems we've seen the rise of a number of Japanese publishing companies that stick to pretty niche titles, and the very idea that there are a lot of Japanese games that get made and don't get localized to North America speaks to that for me. It says that they've found a market, they've found what works for them, and they're filling that market, and they're not getting too big for their shoes. They're not spending too much money trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger, only to overextend themselves and totally Roman Empire the fuck out of it. But I'm not sure there's any Western developer that's really doing that right now. Like I would love to say CD Projekt Red. I really would love to say that, because I feel that they've done some fantastic work with good old games. Although they operate separately now, like not a lot of people know that Good Old Games and CD Projekt Red were once like one and the same company. Now they're sister companies. They work together, they cooperate with each other, and CD Projekt Red basically does all their modern development, and then Good Old Games is currently an old school game / kind of like modern indie thing. But that doesn't really their development, CD Projekt Red's development, is still pretty like every 2 or 3 years or something like that. So
yeah, they're not quite big enough.
No.
In terms of output. I was actually thinking, do you know about Gung Ho?
Rattle off some titles.
Well, they're mostly Japanese. Their big title was Puzzles and Dragons, which apparently made like Call of Duty cash.
Yeah.
And then they bought Grasshopper, Suda51's company.
Okay.
So I don't have the stats in front of me, but I assume they are in a state right now where they are viable enough to be, buying whole companies.
Yeah.
But I don't see like, every, year, like all these new big gung-ho projects that are getting announced. I feel like they stick with what works and they have a reasonable kind of outlook on things. I
gotta say too that one of the companies that I've kind of been impressed, I don't want to say meteoric rise or anything like that, but something that I've been impressed about is Devolver.
Oh yeah,
Devolver Digital.
Hotline Miami and
Hotline Miami. They've got the
Serious Sam.
Yeah, and they've got the Shadow Warrior remake coming out. I've kind of been impressed with how they've managed to straddle that kind of like indie, but then at the same time they have these fucking games like fucking Serious Sam 3 or like the new Shadow Warrior game, which I don't know if you've seen any of the footage for, but it looks ridiculously hilarious.
Next gen tree swaying.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's really great if you actually I think on Steam, if you go and look at their requirements, in the requirements, there's like additional notes. Hang on, I gotta look this up. Shadow Warrior Steam page. So yeah, the classic, is it the classic redo or is it no. It's the new one that's coming. Hang on, Shadow Warrior. Yeah, if you go down to the system requirements in the Steam page for Shadow Warrior, it reads, like a DirectX version 9.c, hard drive 8 gig available space, additional notes. An unabashed love of katanas is preferable. That's in their system requirements.
Yeah, they're goofballs. They have the kind of the heart of an indie studio, the kind of do what you want, just have fun with it thing.
Yeah,
but they're definitely of a higher kind of standing, I guess. So, they have more money and eyes on them.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them stepping into that role. I could see them finding that role. But the problem usually happens when the guy in charge, the guy whose dream it is to start up his own publisher or development company or something like that, like wakes up one morning and opens the door, and that guy in the suit with the sports car is all like, "Here, I have all the money in the world. I want to buy everything." That seems to be when the problem happens. Because I remember the good old days. I remember when Activision was legit. I remember when Blizzard was like a bunch of guys who got together and were like, damn it, nobody's doing real-time strategy games the way that we want.
I don't know if you saw, I did an article about the music in Devil May Cry 3 earlier today.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, fuck, Capcom used to be fucking baller.
Yeah.
They used to make the shit. Like, Capcom used to be, like, solid gold for me. Like, I'm sure they had, like, misses along the way, but I didn't notice them. Like, there was a time when that was where you went for, the beat-em-ups and the Resident Evil, the Onimusha, the fucking Devil May Cry. It was, like, there was good times. Yeah. And now, like, no one will touch that shit with a 10-foot pole.
I mean, if you had put Dead Rising 3 on display for me, and, like, shown it to me 10 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, games are going to look like this in 10 years. Not in a million years would I have ever guessed that would have been a Capcom game. Never. I would have been like, is this Rockstar? What's going on? But, yeah, so, I don't know. Time will tell. We'll see if anybody manages to fill that middle zone. It would be really nice. I think it would really benefit both the industry and their business. Because fucking Valve's not doing it.
The Left 4 Dead 3 is apparently a thing, but that's probably the most we're going to get for a while.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, let's move off the topic. Hey, did you hear that Nintendo lost like 8% stock and didn't appear on the biggest exchange in Japan?
Oh no, Nintendo is doomed again.
I know. If I had any sense of sensationalism or was even any bit as good a liar as I hope to be, I would theorize that this means that Nintendo is doomed forever. It's a good thing we're not sensational at all, and we can just say, fucking, it's the worst stock drop in 2 years. 2 years! 2 years. Man, things haven't been this bad since 1931.
If I had $1 for every time Nintendo was doomed, I would have...
You probably have more money than Nintendo was.
I was about to say I'd almost have as much money as I would from the ad revenue from all the articles ever published saying Nintendo was doomed. That shit's like free money. We should do that more often. Or at all. We've never done that, but we should. Apparently that's where the fucking cash is at.
Everybody on Blistered Thumbs is too reasonable, except for maybe one or two of them.
I have to bully fucking Robert into writing anything that might get hits. Like, people joke about, or some people aren't joking, some people are dead serious about trolling for hits. But Robert, who wrote our super controversial Killer is Dead review, he is, like, so anti-hits. Like, he would prefer no one read any of his articles.
He specifically engineers it so that you avoid actually being able to read it.
No, that's just the thing. Like, he hates, like, sensational journalism. He thinks, like, every other website is, like, scum. And every time someone accuses him of trolling you for hits, I'm just like, oh, God, you don't even know. You think you know. But no. Also, everyone else is volunteers, so no one on the site gives a shit how many hits we get, because it doesn't do anything for us.
Yeah.
That's another topic completely. Nintendo is fine. They'll be fine. The Wii U may not be, but who cares? They'll have another console in a couple of years.
If that.
As long as I get Shin Megami Tensei versus Fire Emblem, I could give no fucks about anything else.
I'm sure it'll be fine, Austin.
Okay, that's all that matters.
Yep. So now games, like actual games, real games that people play, games that, I don't know. I was going somewhere with that, but then it got away from me.
Johnny.
Yo, that's me, bro.
I heard that Amnesia, A Machine for Pigs, made you sleepwalk.
It did.
Explain that to me, because
I'm not really fucking sure. Like, okay, this is like, I don't know for real whether or not it made me sleepwalk. Okay, but this is the honest truth, 100% here. I had just started playing it, and I've never been a sleepwalker before in my entire life. Like, I talk in my sleep sometimes. Like, I can even maintain like conversations with people while I'm asleep. That, of course, I forget when I wake up, and that's gotten me in much trouble with girlfriends in the past. But I've never been mobile, never been ambulatory, never once like got out of bed and like, you know, wandered over to the closet and peed in it. Not even like, you know, like blackout drunk. Be responsible, kids, you know. But like, I cannot remember for the life of me at any point in time where I've gone to bed, gotten up and gone somewhere else without waking for it. So I had just started playing Amnesia. I had probably only got about an hour's worth in because, as many of you may have guessed from the review list on Blistered Thumbs, I was pretty hard pressed to get through, finish, and write reviews for Outlast, which we talked about last week a little bit. I'll talk about it a little more today, and A Machine for Pigs in quick succession. So I had only gotten about an hour into Amnesia after finishing the Outlast review. And I went to bed that night, business as usual, flossed, brushed my teeth, you know, ran a neti pot through my sinuses. I have a narrow face, so I irrigate with salt water to kind of keep my passages clean. And I climbed into bed, turned out the light, and went to bed. So when I woke at probably about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, buck-ass naked, in my living room, on my couch next to my computer, in a very confused and alarmed state, it was kind of frightening. I was sort of like freezing cold. There were no blankets anywhere. I didn't know where I was because it was fucking pitch black. The door to my balcony was open, so there was a bunch of like night air just wafting in, caressing my naked, lithe body. and the only thing that I can really think of that would have compelled me to do that was that I had been terrified and stressed out for about an hour before going to bed. So I think Amnesia, A Machine for Pigs made me sleepwalk, especially considering the state that I woke up in. Because I was like, I didn't remember what I was dreaming about or anything like that, but I woke up alarmed.
Covered in pig's blood.
I'm not, you know, that's neither here nor there. The way I decorate my apartment is my own business, of course. But if there was pig's blood, I can assure you it was humanely retrieved.
You got them to sign all the necessary forms?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was consensual.
Consensual? Is that Crumpets? I don't know what I'm talking about anymore.
We'll just ignore that comment then.
I just wanted to ask if something else was Crumpets.
But yes, I was playing Amnesia: A Dark Descent for the purposes of review this week. It was scary!
Here's the thing. I know you only gave it a for fans only recommendation.
Yes.
I've been reading around the internet, and it seems to me that the reaction to it is that if you go in expecting The Dark Descent 2, you will be disappointed. If you go in expecting Dear Esther, holy shit, what was that noise, then you will be very happy.
Yeah. And that's actually, I should clarify that that's really why I included the for fans only, because I mean, make no bones about it. It is at its very core, it is an Amnesia game. I also mentioned in the review that it feels as though it definitely has more of the Chinese Room's DNA in it than Frictional Games. Like, it seems very obvious that they were making a Chinese Room game with a Frictional twist, as opposed to trying to make a Frictionals game with a Chinese Room twist. Like, it's very narrative. It's very deliberately paced. The writing is very florid. I even think they reused the same voice actor from Dear Esther. I didn't investigate that, but it's although frightening, it is certainly less terrifying than the original Amnesia.
Obviously, I don't want you to give away any of the scares or anything. Does it have to do with kind of? It seems to me that something like Dear Esther is, linear is a word I think I'm going to hear about this. Is it kind of scripted, or is it? Because I think one of the things about The Dark Descent was like, I'm just in these hallways and I feel like they're kind of roaming around minding their own business, and it was more organic.
Yeah, it's quite scripted actually. I mean, the very idea, the fact that the sanity meter is gone. There's a couple of changes they've made to the way that the game plays that actually makes it a much more straightforward narrative experience. And this can work to strengths in a game. Like, let's be honest here. Because sometimes you want to tell a story and sometimes you want people to create their own story. It seems to me that A Machine for Pigs is more about telling the story than it is about letting the player create their own. And that is not necessarily a bad thing, but it does things like, for example, I mentioned that the health system is gone. It has been ditched in lieu of using a regenerating health system, which kind of works in its favor sometimes and other times doesn't, insofar as that, like, you can't really bank on like your laudanum collection to save you. So it's like when you come face to face with something scary and deadly, you have to run, and you have to make a quick decision about running, or else the detriments are fatal. The sanity system, the flexible sanity system, is gone too. So, like, the more you look at horrific things, or the more time you spend in the dark, your character does not lose it. You don't go crazier as the game goes on, but there are moments and stings and parts of the game where they are set up. They're obviously orchestrated and scripted to really make you think you're losing it. And oh my God, some of them are fantastic. Like it's a really great narrative set piece when it hits you at just the right moment. Like while in control of it all, they control it excellently.
Yeah.
Similarly, like, there's no oil for the lantern. The lantern you use is electric, so it doesn't run out of juice. It malfunctions sometimes, but you're never at risk of running out of oil.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like part of the thing that made Amnesia: The Dark Descent so popular was, like the Let's Plays and the reaction videos and stuff. It's kind of the grassroots social stuff, because people getting into shenanigans, it was like some of that stuff was just, it was different for everyone, because who knows where you're going to find a monster or what you're going to do in response. And if the sequel is more scripted, you could lose some of that charm. I
am counseling absolutely everybody and anybody that and I'm sorry for all those people who make Let's Plays out there, but if you have any designs on playing A Machine for Pigs, don't watch it on YouTube.
Yeah. That's what I've been hearing too.
Don't do it.
I believe the email we got from Frictional was actually part of that. Was like, you can play the first couple minutes, but like, please don't put up too much footage because you'll ruin the entire game.
Yeah, it is so heavily. It relies so heavily on a personal experience and actually coming face to face with the challenges and the information that the game presents you on your own. Like it uses the environments to great effect. Like, it's got way more varied environments than the original Amnesia, which was like, castle-y, dungeon-y.
Castle dungeon.
Yeah, basically, but this one has so many environments. There are these, like, tightly packed Victorian turn of the 20th century, like, midnight dark streets, and these industrial factory areas and opulent mansions and like sewers that are just clogged thick with blood and guts and intestine and dirty water and these like weird arcane machines that look like they have otherworldly designs to them, and like it truly is a breathtaking game to behold in its design. But people that are expecting Amnesia: The Dark Descent 2 are going to be disappointed. If you're looking for that YouTube scream, if you're looking for those like jump at you, completely frightening, oh my god, I'm gonna die, oh my god, I'm gonna die, oh my god, I'm gonna die, you should be playing Outlast right now. Right now. Go.
That was the exact thing I got from both of your reviews, is that Outlast is the sequel you probably would expect to The Dark Descent, and Machine for Pigs is the weird, disturbed sequel you might get to Dear Esther after a particularly strange drug binge, perhaps.
Yeah, that's really it. I feel like there's more of Dear Esther in A Machine for Pigs than there is actually Amnesia. But no bones about it. It is an Amnesia game. It's just, it's not the next Amnesia game. It's like a different Amnesia game. I'm trying to draw a parallel here where say a game like Quantum Conundrum.
Yeah, like Portal.
It obviously has a lot of its DNA roots in Portal, and not just in its design and like level design and things like that, and not even in its staff. Kim Swift being its lead designer. But it's like everybody's looking at Quantum Conundrum and thinking Portal. Everybody's like, yeah, this is the Portal game that didn't get made. It's like Portal's wacky cousin, and that's kind of what A Machine for Pigs is. It's like, if Dear Esther and Amnesia: The Dark Descent are like, step kids, if they're like stepbrothers, then fucking like A Machine for Pigs is like the weird cousin that comes to visit, where it's like it's neither, but it's both.
That's probably gonna not sit well with some people, but as long as you're aware of what you're getting into, and that's kind of the beauty of reviews, is that you know all of the pertinent information if you read them.
Yeah. I'm gonna be flat out honest, because I worry that people are going to mistake my review, if indeed anybody has read it, as me kind of like complaining that it's not Amnesia: The Dark Descent 2. It's a great game. Like it's awesome. It's unsettling. It's creative. Its environments are fantastic. It's so uneasy. And there are a couple of things that I didn't talk about in the review. Like, I didn't really talk about the visuals, and I didn't really talk about the sound design, because these are things that I feel like are kind of endemic to Amnesia. They exist in Amnesia. Like, although when you get up close in The Dark Descent, when you get up close to the enemies, they look a little bit goofy and whatnot, right? You can't fault the environments, you can't fault the visual effects, and the sound design was phenomenal. And that transfers over into A Machine for Pigs easily. The environments are better. They're amazing. The effects are still chilling. The sound design is so off-putting. The noises, my God, the noises. It's not something I could write about in the review. It really wasn't, because that's really, I really honestly don't want to give away too much. I don't want to be like, yeah, so, and you'll hear this and this and this, because it banks so much on your personal experience. But, rooms that are deadly quiet, and then you get these rooms that have these, soft machinery noises in the background, and then these creatures, and oh my God, the fucking sound in this game just terrified me. It was really good. It's a really, really good game, but it's not the game I think that people are going to be expecting, and I worry that that's going to disappoint them.
Did you just hear that?
What?
I heard something from your side.
Yeah, that screechy noise.
Yeah, for a second there, I thought it was you were haunted.
No, that's a train line. There's a train line that runs near my house, and there occasionally you get some trains that come through here that. But that was a nice sting, wasn't it? I mean, that was like...
Yeah, you were like, the sound is really unsettling, and then I just hear this metallic scrape, like someone dragging an axe across the concrete floor behind you.
That was nowhere near intended, but I'm glad it happened when it did, how it did.
Did you want to, I know this is the thing about talking about horror games and trying not to ruin them. Did you want to expand on what you said about Outlast last week? Just a little bit?
I would like to expand a little bit on Outlast, because you and I, we talked about the Asylum. You know, like, we talked about the whole concept of the Asylum game and looking back at them 10 years from now and being like, God, how primitive. And this was like one of the things about Outlast that I really liked. In the first place, as far as a horror game, I gotta say that its MacGuffin really impressed me. Because I'm fucking sick and tired of horror games that are like, hey, there's a scary thing out there. Okay, go get it. No. Fuck you. I'm going home.
Call the police. Someone.
Yeah, you know, like, or being like, congratulations, you're in an abandoned orphanage. And I'm like, why? And then it's like, because you need to collect these notes. I'm like, that's not a sufficient explanation. I don't want to be there. I don't care about these notes. Is it an unpublished William Shakespeare manuscript? Because maybe then I could understand why I would be there. But that still makes no sense why it's in an abandoned haunted orphanage. You know, like there's so much horror games that fail to romance the player, and Outlast does a great job of it. You know, where it starts, it's like, you are investigative journalist Miles Upshur, and I'm like, ooh, I am. And it's like, you got an anonymous tip. I'm like, I did? About some evil doings at an abandoned asylum. I'm like, I don't really want to go there, but it's my job, so okay. And then, yeah, you show up at this asylum, you get inside, and suddenly you're cut off from the outside world. And I'm like, okay, I believe this. All right, I'm in. Let's get out of here. But one of the things that they did that I really, really quite liked was actually have, like, passive inmates. It's a freaky fucking place, you know. And the first time that I saw somebody in the asylum, well, no, I shouldn't say the first time I saw somebody, because the first time I saw somebody in the asylum, he threw me from the second floor to the first.
Well, the welcoming party.
Oh yeah, you know, like he was real warm. And not even the second, because the second person I saw found me on the first floor, lying on my back, semi-comatose. But the third person that I saw, the third inmate that I saw, I'm like,
I like how you call them inmates, not patients.
Well, you know, they're not really dressed like patients. And I mean this, you know, it becomes part of the plot basically, because it is an asylum for the criminally insane.
Oh, okay.
You know,
they're inmatients.
Yeah, they're inmatients. The third inmation that I saw, I'm like, you know, lean around the corner, look down the corridor, and there's a dude who's doing the neutron dance in a wheelchair, and I'm like, seizure or just really funky. And I did fucking everything I could to avoid this guy, because I'm like, nothing good can come of this. Nothing good can come of this man sitting in this chair, shaking it like a Polaroid picture. And I explored every other avenue, and it's like, no, you have to go down this corridor. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this.
I can't stop laughing at the Polaroid picture.
I'm like, I really don't want to do this. And it's like, it's every horror trope that you've ever seen, you know, like there's a terrible silhouette on the wall, there's a knocked over floodlight in front of him, you know, you've got this, like, you can see his shadow cast on the wall, and he's facing away from you, and you're just like, oh god, bad things are gonna happen. So I get down, I crouch, and I, like, you know, move a little closer, and I move a little closer, and I wait for him, I'm waiting for him to twitch and, like, look over his shoulder, or be like, they're coming, you know, or something like that, right? But he's just sitting there, drooling, you know, and I'm like, okay, inmation uses drools. It has no effect. And I get, like, right up to him, and I kind of like lean over his shoulder, you know. I'm like right next to the guy, and I'm just like looking at him. I'm like, hello, hello, and then I like walk right round to the front of him, and I'm standing there, and he's like, he's just like, he's pulling a dubstep in the chair, doesn't even know I'm there, man, and I'm like, okay.
Well, I mean, if it had been your traditional jump scare that it kind of set you up for, I don't think you'd remember it right now.
No, probably not. You know, like the very first time that you encounter an inmatient, and yeah, he like he chucks you down the main foyer. I'm like, how did that happen again? I remember the result because I remember waking up in the main foyer, but I don't remember actually running into him. But this other one where I'm like, oh god, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And then yeah, this guy is just like hanging out, and I'm like, hey, Frank, good to see you. And that's, I mean, it's not the only time it happens. There's other times during the course of the game where you come across passive patients. And sometimes they will stand aggressively. Like there was another guy that I came where he was in like a guard room, you know, like, or in like a guard station or something like that. And he had this nightstick, and he's looking at me threateningly, and he's whispering. He's like, quiet. I just want quiet. It has to be quiet. Just quiet down. Just be quiet. And I'm like, well, he's not running at me, so are we buddies? But then I got a little too close to him, and he cracks me upside the head. But he doesn't come running after me after that. He's like, get away, get away, get away, get away, get away. It has to be quiet. And I'm like, okay, buddy, I'm going to go quieten it down over here.
Yeah, that's the thing about horror, is that it's best when it kind of plays with your expectations. I think part of the reason people are so hostile to jump scares is because we kind of see them coming, but we're helpless to kind of not flinch, and that's not real, you know, like terror. That's just kind of someone playing on your stupid meatbag existence.
Yeah, it's appealing to the reflexes rather than a deeper psychological, more thorough terror.
Yeah. And I think video games is like, if there's any genre that video games as a medium is best suited for over other ones, like, you know, you can tell The Last of Us basic story in literature or film, you know, about humanity and what it means to be alive and whatnot, and fatherhood. But you can't make someone so invested in a character's survival as you can when you are that person.
Yeah.
You know, like the actor is going to be fine. Hopefully.
Especially, you know, like when you're when you recognize them as real people. You know, when you go and watch a horror movie and you're like, oh hey, it's Ethan Hawke. And
I don't remember reading about him getting ripped limb from limb. So
yeah, you know, you're just sort of like, Ethan Hawke's gonna be fine, because it's like you recognize that it's Ethan Hawke, and you recognize that it's Ethan Hawke in a movie, and you're like, oh.
But you're like, I don't know if Miles Upshur makes it. Like,
yeah, you know, like you're sort of like, gee, Miles, I guess it's you and me.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's a shame that so many horror series are not good anymore or ever.
Well, that's what I was. You know, I'm assuming that you read and edited my Outlast review. That's what that whole first paragraph is about. Is that it's just sort of like, to do anything else, to make like drama, to make action movies, to make this or that, you kind of have to have a pedigree in that one thing. But it's like any asshole with an air cannon, a fog machine, and like 2 pints of fucking corn syrup that's been dyed red can be like, I'm gonna make a horror movie.
You don't even need that much. The found footage subgenre has opened up a whole new brave world for all kinds of people to half-ass horror.
Oh, God, yes.
It's not even like it can't be used effectively. It can, but it's also really easy to half-ass.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Oh, horror games. I'm sorry I put you through like a fucking double feature of that shit.
No, it was worth it. And just for like, you know, just for like doubly clear sake, I want to say that after reviewing both Outlast and Amnesia: A Machine for Pigs and finishing them, I bought them anyways. Like, I liked these games that much. That's good.
I always feel good about buying games I got a review copy for anyway, because that's like, I put my money where my mouth is. I double down on the recommendation, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're both particularly, like, if you're a fan of horror games, specifically, Outlast is your bomb. You know, if you like excellent narrative experience with superb mood, tone, like just a well-designed experience, A Machine for Pigs is your jam.
Do you think we're going to see good things from Red Barrels? That was their first outing, but they're ex-Ubisoft and Naughty Dog employees.
I
so
do think we're going to see some good things from them. I was uncannily impressed with Outlast.
That's cool.
Like, it impressed me in ways that I was unprepared for.
That's cool. We could always use another studio that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm all for it. That's really all I've been playing this week.
Okay, do you want to hear what I've been playing?
I want to hear all about what you've been playing.
Okay, first I played Rayman Legends, which is
asshole.
Is it not out for PC yet?
No, it is out for PC. It's just I've been busy with other things, you know.
Rayman Legends is unsurprisingly very, very good. We've talked about Rayman Origins before on the podcast. It's my belief that it is the best 2D platformer of all time. Legends is just more of that. It's just very good. Like, it's hard to even say anything that I didn't say about Origins before. In some respects, I was talking to Yusuf about this. Like, you could probably say about it that it's kind of a glorified expansion, in a sense. I mean, it actually includes, like, swaths of Origins in it. Like, it's so much of a building on that you can just include the whole Origins game itself, and it doesn't feel out of place or anything. So it's not really anything fresh or novel, except some of the negatives, and I'm going to get there. I just want to be very clear up front that Rayman Legends is good, and you should buy it. It's $40. It's not a full $60 release for like the best platforming, great music, great art, just all around good stuff. Is that clear?
Totally clear.
Okay, because now I'm going to shit on Rayman Legends.
Woo! Let's do it!
It was made as a Wii U exclusive originally, and so it has all these things that were supposed to be touch features, and then when it got ported to PC, Xbox 360, Vita, that stuff is still in there, and it's not good. Like, Yusuf tells me on the Wii U, it's better, but on the PS3 where I played it, mainly, here's what it boils down to, is you're stuck with an AI partner who like interacts with the platforms and such. So you're walking up to, a platform, and you have to hit a button to make him push it or something, and then you can jump on it. That, to me, it commits kind of the cardinal sin of platforming, which is you will die, and it won't be your fault.
Yeah, that's...
To me, there's nothing worse a platformer can do. And it's not, I wouldn't say common, but it's, for example, like, if two platforms are close together, and I want him to push one and not the other, and I'm like halfway in between, there's no way for me to differentiate in the split second between life and death which one I want him to go to. And if that wasn't a mechanic, or if there was a way to interact more directly with that could be avoided. But in some instances, you're just dead because he didn't go to the right platform.
Yeah.
And it doesn't ruin the game. There's only like, I don't know, a dozen or so of these stages, maybe off the top of my head. So it's not a huge, like, giant impediment, but it's a noticeable flaw when I would say Origins is, like, close to flawless. It's just, like, pure platforming joy. In Legends, it's like, oh, shit, it's another one of these fucking levels. Can't wait until this is over. And that's just not a feeling I ever got from Origins.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, how do you build on Origins in a meaningful way? Another thing that I think that's only in Legends is, like, you'll occasionally get, like, a projectile weapon. So, like, tapping the attack button will, like, send out a projectile, and that's usually mainly used against bosses. But, I mean, that's a new mechanic, kind of. But
they had the flying segments with the mosquitoes, where in Origins, where it was sort of like an R-type side scroller.
Yeah, it has those kind of like bullet hell stuff, but I'm talking about in Legends, it's during the platforming.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying it is new, but it's to say it's all
it's
new.
Not.
That's like being like the new Honda Civic. It's like, no. Did you reinvent the combustion engine? I don't think so.
Well, that's the thing. I don't want them to reinvent the 2D Rayman games because they're very fucking good.
Yeah.
But you need some meaningful progress to recommend it year over year,
Yes.
I guess that's the problem with setting the bar so high. It's like, where do you go? That's I guess with the Super Mario 64, which is my favorite game of all time. It's like Super Mario Sunshine. I was like, it's kind of the same, but with the jetpack, and the jetpack isn't perfect, so I kind of just want to play Mario 64.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, I mean, I put a big disclaimer at the beginning. Rayman Legends is great, and you should play it, but it's going to be remembered as that game that was ruined by the exclusivity thing. And also, I mean, Wii U fans are furious that it's not exclusive anymore because it was like a justifying part of the platform. It's like Wii U, you get Mario, Donkey Kong, Zelda, and the Rayman, and now you don't. I mean, you still get it, but it's not anymore. It doesn't justify your purchase anymore. So
yeah.
Nobody's happy, really, in the end. So I think it's just unfortunate, really.
Mm-hmm.
Another game I played, also a $40 platformer. This time, Sony's Puppeteer.
Yes.
I was super, super pleased with that game. I knew it was going to be good. We talked about it before when Taylor did a video about it, and I was like, oh, that looks really cute and fun. I was not really prepared for how good it was. I don't know how real I want to get on this. Like, I might as well. I've been super, like, miserable lately, like, between like work and like my personal life and just like everything. I've been like seriously considering just not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
Just like getting a regular fucking job and just leaving all this behind. And then I played Puppeteer and I was like, this is why I do this. I love video games and I love experiencing new and exciting ways to use the medium to tell stories and stuff. You know, just new characters, new music, and just everything new and exciting. And Puppeteer is just that.
Yeah.
It's just all about that. And like I was talking to Yusuf, he's been playing it too, and he thinks, you know, the platforming is a little too simplistic in it. I mean, it is, but I mean, it's a kid's game.
Yep.
I guess is my excuse. Like, if it was like ball-bustingly hard, I feel like that would be self-defeating. And it's not that it doesn't get more complex. It just gets complex in a kind of steady, gradual sense until it just kind of reaches a satisfying level. And I feel like it does exactly what it sets out to do, and I don't hold any of its simplicity against it.
Yeah.
And it's the thing, it's really hard to communicate how good this game looks. Like, you can watch it on YouTube, I guess, but it just doesn't do it justice. Like, you need to watch it in HD on a big-ass TV, and it's really good. And I know visuals don't make a game. You know, like, I'm not a graphics whore by any kind of stretch of the imagination, but if that's their focus of the game, it makes a big difference. And it's just part of the experience. You know, you got the writing and the voice acting, which is, like, kind of bad on purpose, because, like, the conceit of the game is that you were watching a stage performance, and so the people in there will, like, mess up their lines and, like, you know, talk shit about each other. It's like, it's good stuff. You just kind of have to sit back and enjoy it. And it's a long, like, involved game for $40. I put, like, more than a dozen hours into it, and I have, like, 50% completion or something. So it's a lot of game. It's a lot of good. And I'm kind of frustrated by, like, how low profile it is.
It's kind of weird. I would have expected it to be a little bit more at the forefront. Like, I would have thought that it would have gotten more attention. Like, when I first saw Taylor's video for it, I expected that we were going to see it in, like, a couple of months. I was like, oh, that'll probably be coming out in the fall. And then it was, like, you know, a matter of weeks later, it seems, and it was already out. And I was like, what?
I'm not sure if is it because the generation is winding down and it's kind of hard to get excited about new stuff, new IP?
Conceivably, although not necessarily from a gamer standpoint, maybe from, like, a developer, publisher standpoint.
Like, they're having a hard time pushing it when
there's all this, like, other effort that's being focused on, you know, what's next, the new thing. Because nobody's going to be excited about anything unless it's 256-bit.
Also, releasing anything this close to Grand Theft Auto 5 is pretty much suicide.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, did you watch the review schedule as soon as Call of Duty Ghosts release date was announced? Everything just the fucking Red Sea parting to get away from it.
Yeah, pretty much.
It was amazing. But yeah, that's always kind of the effect. So Puppeteer is really the closest, like, major release to Grand Theft Auto on this side of it, and then I guess FIFA after it, and FIFA is kind of review proof.
More or less.
So
Especially for me,
So,
I don't give a toss.
True, but there's certain games it doesn't matter. Like Grand Theft Auto 5 and FIFA and Call of Duty could get straight zeros from every outlet and they'd still sell.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing. Here's the thing. Last week we talked about like some inside baseball shit, and people in the comments said they didn't mind. So I want to say some things about Grand Theft Auto 5 here. Rockstar does not give a shit about journalism. They don't give a shit about journalists or the games media. They are so far above us that it borders on hilarious even from our perspective. Like, they don't care what we think. It's pretty great.
Yeah, I kind of have to respect them for it.
Like, there's a lot of companies who are super, receptive and into the community. They're always talking to people and stuff. Rockstar is like, we're going to make a game and then we're going to release it. Anything else that happens is none of our fucking concern.
Yeah.
They just don't care. And it's they've earned it, I guess. They're one of the most popular franchises in the world, and they spend and make more money than anyone else.
Yep.
But it's like 10 sites are going to get review copies, and that's it. And that they just don't care.
Yeah, they couldn't really give two damns.
It's pretty funny to watch because when their reviews come out, it doesn't matter if they're 10s or 1s, because they're going to sell a jillion copies, and people are going to be pissed no matter what. They're going to say the scores are too high or too low,
yep,
depending on where they fall.
Yep.
So I'm not looking forward to that. That's going to be my life for like a week. There's certain things, you see them coming, and you're like, oh, I can't wait to suffer through that. That's Tokyo Game Show for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know Persona 5 is not going to be there, but I'm gonna have to watch all the conferences, and it's like, why am I doing this to myself? This is my life. I'm gonna sit through 100 Monster Hunter trailers.
You know you want it.
Monster Hunter?
Monster Hunter clones.
I don't get the appeal. I think I've probably said this before. Like, Monster Hunter is... I understand, like, the core appeal to it in that, like, you're...
hunting monsters.
Yeah, the idea of, like, giant monsters and fighting them is fine. But there's been, like, 12 versions of this third entry, and they're all... I don't know. I'm going to piss people off. Maybe it's... Some people probably feel the same way I feel about Pokemon, so whatever. I guess it's the details. You see Mega Blastoise?
No, I haven't seen Mega Blastoids.
Mega Blastoise is pretty baller. I'm going to send you a picture of Mega Blastoise.
All right. I will look at your picture of Mega Blastoids. God, this is weird. I actually get to play video games that I want to play when I want to play them now. Whenever I come off having to review stuff, whenever I come off having to review stuff, I always feel a bit weird.
Do you?
Yeah, because it's always sort of like, oh yeah, it's my time now. Mega Blast.
Did you die? That's real, by the way. That's not fan art.
Nope.
That's Mega Blast.
Nope.
That's Mega Blastoise.
I'm aware of that.
Are you digging it?
Pokemon's getting kind of ridiculous, isn't it?
I haven't sorted through my feelings yet. Like, my original thought on the Mega Pokemon was like, wow, this is a little too Digimon for my taste.
Uh-huh.
But now I'm like, as long as they get Mega Snorlax, I don't really care. That's all that matters to me, as long as we get Mega Snorlax. And Mega Charizard. You gotta see that.
See, that doesn't look that weird.
He's just got some fins and frills.
It's like a dragon with some accessories. He's all like, I brought this, because it's the season.
Mega Blastoise is like...
He's got a fucking shell cannon.
He's always had shell cannons.
I know, but...
That's the thing. People hold the first generation so sacred, but it had some stupid fucking designs.
That would be true of a lot of things.
Like?
Oh, Transformers.
I believe you. Transformers was before my time.
I know, but I mean, like, everybody's like, Transformers. I mean, you had, like... There was a fucking robot that was like 3 stories tall that transformed into a boombox.
Oh, speaking of conservation of mass, I finally... That's a really random transition. I finally saw Iron Man 3. Man, that sucked dick balls.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, have you seen Iron Man 3?
Not yet. I'm looking to, eventually.
It was so bad. I was having like a screaming argument with someone about it, and they were like, "Oh, I mean," they were trying to say like, not even that it didn't have gaping plot holes, but that it didn't matter. I was like, okay, one or two plot holes, minor plot holes, that's fine. I can deal. When the entire movie is made out of huge gaping plot holes, how can you just accept that?
I only imagine that people have very low standards.
There's a difference between like making allowances for that and like actively enabling lazy script writing.
Yep.
Because I mean, Iron Man 3 is like the 5th highest grossing film in history.
Seriously?
Yeah. And it is embarrassingly bad.
Wow.
Like, yeah. It violates just basic scientific laws. I'm not even talking about like comic book science. Like I can accept the arc reactor because they techno-babbled their way out of it. Oh, it's the thing, it has infinite energy. I can accept that.
Yeah.
I'm not an asshole. But if you're just going to casually create matter from nothing routinely throughout an entire movie and never even try to explain it, fuck you. Just fuck you a lot. It's bullshit, and I won't accept it, and I won't be told to accept it, because that way lies madness. We cannot just sit back and have huge Hollywood blockbusters that casually ignore just the way the universe works.
But you're okay with Resident Evil still, right?
No. Why does everyone think it's okay to have matter from nothing? This is just a basic scientific principle.
No, I recognize that. I was being, wait for it, facetious.
It's basically the same concept. It's the Resident Evil problem of science doing magic.
Yeah.
I'm not asking for much. I'm just saying a little bit of research or techno-babble your way out of it, man.
Yeah. Geordie LaForge that shit.
I don't get that reference, but I'm sure it's great.
Star Trek The Next Generation?
I've seen the Star Trek movies.
It's like whenever in Star Trek The Next Generation, whenever they had problems with they needed more energy or this needed to work or that needed to work and it didn't, Geordie LaForge, who was the chief engineer, was like, I'm trying, Captain, but the ionic couplers aren't really plugging into the phasic inducers right now, and it looks like we're going to have to modulate our photon lines before we get a proper sync here. And it's like, yeah, we better, what he said, we got to do that.
I don't mind technobabble as long as it is firmly, especially if you're in a science fiction universe, you can just pull things out of your ass, just dilithium crystals for days. But, for instance, in the new Star Trek movie that I just watched not too long ago, there's at the beginning, there's a cold fusion bomb that explodes and makes ice. And it's that's just not what cold fusion means. Use a different word. You know what I'm saying?
Although now I want to create a type of beer can that immediately chills the moment you open it and call it the cold fuge can.
You're a jerk. But I'm saying you could have said anything. You could have just been I don't know.
It's an ice bomb.
just been really generic with it. It's a really cold thing. It's a chili sphere.
Yeah.
Get out of my just get out of my face.
It's the world's most powerful heat sink. When you pull the pin on it, it sucks the heat out of everything.
And we said this before about Mass Effect. It's what makes BioWare's world so fun is that nothing sounds like bullshit.
Yeah.
At least not on first inspection, at least. I can't think of anything in the Mass Effect universe that just is blatantly not okay to me. It's no, element 0 does not exist. But you explained it in such a way
that I could believe it exists somewhere.
Yeah, that it doesn't stretch my suspension of disbelief, at least. That's all I ask. I'm not a complicated and difficult to please person, but sometimes I feel like I am.
You're saying the same thing that I just said about horror movies. We need to be romanced.
Lie to me believably is all I'm asking.
Yeah, you gotta the door has to open. They'd be like, oh, you must be Austin. Come in. Can I fix you something to drink while I explain the way that the energy in this universe works? Well, you see, we've invented this fake compound called element 0. I'm sorry, is that too sweet for you? I feel like, no. You can keep talking. Why, thank you.
For some reason, I'm picturing this, and it's Mark Cerny.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
We didn't use disappointed game publisher parents this week. I'm disappointed. I thought that was going to be I thought that was going to be our thing.
Well, who do we have to be disappointed at this week?
I don't know. I don't want to force it. It needs to be an organic running joke.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a bit of news, but I think the kids are okay this week. They're having a tough time of it in school, and there's no need to come down on them that hard. I remember what it was like when I was a little developer. Your voice dropping, getting hair where there was no hair before. Suddenly you start noticing other people's games.
Oh, my.
All I'm trying to say, Austin, is that sometimes it's the role of the parent to step back and let them learn from their own mistakes.
Seems like there's a lot more mistakes than learning.
Yes.
Like there's supposed to be something after that, but you're just like, yes. Just yes.
Yeah, that's all I got.
All right, did you have any way to wrap this up?
Shirts. Does it feel like...
I'm sorry. That shirts, does it feel like? Were those supposed to connect? Is there a semicolon there? Or?
I was getting somewhere. I wasn't sure yet. I was getting distracted.
Shirts, does it?
Shirts, does it feel like?
I don't even know what we said in this episode that could go as a title. I'll have to listen to it again. I think I'm going to go take a nap right now, though.
Naps are pretty good.
Yeah, I could use one. We got 2 hours out of this. I thought it was going to be a shorter episode, but we did it. We are cursed to be verbose, I suppose.
It's all right. I think we're okay. There might be stuff to edit out of there from the beginning. Yeah,
probably. I'll poke around. We'll see what happens.
Awesome.
All right, thank you.
No.
Oh, you.